You're watching Morning at NTV.
On the big story this morning, we dig into the proposal by government to hire Cuban doctors. They want to bring in a couple of them because there is a shortfall in Uganda. But critically, what's causing the shortfall? Because Uganda trains some of the best doctors world over, and that's why they're marketable wherever they go. South Africa, UK, the US, and elsewhere. So is it a shortage of doctors? Some are saying, why not address the question of why our doctors are running away? Because if you can bring in doctors from elsewhere and pay them real good, you can pay hours better and they keep around. Joining me this morning is Dr. Fawuz Kavuma. He's a spokesperson of the Uganda Medical Association. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning. Thank you for hosting us here.
We're glad that you could come. I need to make mention of the fact that you tried to reach out to government, the Ministry of Health, and they did not accept to be a part of this conversation. The technical people reached out to the politicians. Nobody was available, but the discussion will go on. Anyway, it would have been good to hear from them why they are proposing what they are proposing. So tell me, you folks have analyzed this proposal. What exactly does it mean? To the ordinary fellow who read in the newspapers, it is government is bringing in doctors here. Yeah. Have you been engaged on why this is happening and so on?
Well, it started up last year, we all remember, where the proposition came during the strike. And the minister came out, the State Minister, General Duties of Health, said, no, it was just something that was discussed in passing and was not to be implemented. However, now it is back on the table. We have analyzed it before and are still analyzing it. However, just like earlier you mentioned, the quote of the week being mentioned from the General Secretary, Uganda Medical Association, about not finding what to use here in the country and in the hospitals. The Cuban doctors would also join us in the strike. Since the last industrial action in the 1990s, the doctors were promised that once the economy is strong, they will get the right remuneration. And we have seen that probably the economy is becoming strong. We are now discussing bringing foreigners to work in the country. So, well, it's a proposal that has not gone well with the doctors. And
are you guys engaging government, the Ministry of Health, and giving options, for example? Because these people would be coming to work with you guys.
True. Currently, we've not had the platform to engage. The Uganda Medical Association has not been consulted on this matter.
Would you like to be? Is it... Okay, when you talk about consultation, you know that word can fall many different directions. Is it important that you be consulted when government is to hire people?
Yes, it is, especially if you're going to hire foreigners. You're going to demotivate the young doctors in Uganda who are unemployed, by the way, because of the cap put on recruitment for health workers. You're also going to demotivate the specialists here. And it also does not make sense because we have the highest brain drain. Like you've mentioned, we have the best doctors in the country, marketable anywhere in the world. And then you have to import new doctors. For someone who is thinking straight, you should be putting in place measures that are going to attract the ones going away to come back to their home country before you mention that you have few specialists in the country.
So these specialists that government is seeking to hire,
yeah,
can we avail them? If government says, look, we are looking for these people because we don't have them on ground. If they said, all right, let's strike a deal here.
Yeah.
If you avail to us those specialists, then we don't need to hire Cuban doctors. Can we avail them? Are they available?
They are available. Or one, you recently remember we were sending doctors to Trinidad and Tobago just because we had so many. And then a few years later, you're saying you don't have enough specialists. I think the Cuban doctors are going to come in here with a salary of about 5.4, which is even more than a senior consultant salary. So make the same salary available for the specialists. And
they're hiring 200 of them, is it?
Yes, they're hiring 200 of them. So make the same salary available and then see if no one will take up these positions.
In your view, is it because there's a shortfall, or is government saying, perhaps sending a message to you guys that if you strike, we can get people from elsewhere to do the job?
Well, one, it would be good to have the Cuban doctors here if everything were okay, because it gives you the avenue to learn from them, given their technological advancements, and they are our colleagues in practice. That is one. Two, while they are here, they will also lack what to use. They will also not have what to use. We've seen Tororo Health Center going a week without power. So we are wondering, will they also be able to fit into this health system that we have right now, crippled, lack of what to use, lack of electricity, lack of accommodation, and them coming into the country. There are several other things that have to be put in place. You have to improve security, you have to improve accommodation. Currently, the Ugandan specialists are not being accommodated. So you have to put all this into place to enable that they do have a good working environment. Yeah.
The last we were engaging with you folks, you were engaging government to try and strike a compromise. There's things that you wanted to be done.
Yep.
And you called off the strike. How far with your engagements with government? Do you feel that there's progress?
Well, there's been minimal progress. We have not yet realized the 41 billion supplementary budget that was meant to cover the equipment, the reusable items like gloves in the hospitals and medicines. This supplementary has not come out till now, despite the fact that several supplementaries have been passed. The SHO and interns policies are still ongoing. The ministry is still having the meetings, so we should be having policies probably by the end of the year. Salary increment, we've not yet gotten an official documentation from the public service. However, just like any other Ugandan, we've read in the newspapers about the proposed increment. Yep. So not much has been gained on that front.
Are you engaging government? Are you people talking?
Yes, we are. We are talking, but the talks are far apart, and I should say there needs to be much more from the government in terms of willingness, availability, and not to postpone several of their meetings. Yes.
I know this question is not for you, really. I wish the Ministry of Health was represented here, but they turned down the invite. Why, in your discovery, do you think we are getting Cuban doctors and not doctors from South Africa or Kenya? Is it because Cuba has a surplus? Is it because they're very well trained? What have you discovered?
Well, Cuba has one of the best health systems in the world, and they currently train the most doctors. So they have they are doing import-export for doctors. So I think, given the fact that we do not have enough structures in place to supervise the interns, to undertake trainings for the intern doctors, the SHOs within government institutions, I think the ministry came up with the idea to strike up the balance so that they have enough specialists available. That is my thinking, really, because it does not make sense. We have about 1,500 specialists in the country. That's as per the UMDPC registrar, and about 3,500 general doctors. We graduate.
Those are around working currently?
No, those are registered. They could be registered but not around. We graduate 150 specialists every year and graduate about over 500 doctors every year. So the uptake into public service has been very low. If this year you said you're not taking up any public servants into the system, you're not recruiting anyone, then that means those 500 will remain unemployed, and they will remain to either work to the private sector which extorts them, long hours, you know. So people will move on. And before you know it, over 70% will leave the country, and about 20% will go into research and the non-government organizations, leaving a very small percentage available to serve Ugandans. So, improving working conditions, as sounded out during the industrial action, is one of the ways through which the government can enable the Ugandans stay within here, work within their country, and serve Ugandans, being that they are trained here and serve their people. The Cubans will come here. They do not know the language. They will also have challenges setting into the system. And in turn, we will have to use nurses to translate for them. And these nurses could do work elsewhere in saving lives. So, is this the best solution? No.
So you said that as a country, we annually graduate 150 specialists, and
Yes.
did you say 500 doctors?
Yes.
What's the difference, by the way, between a doctor and a specialist?
The doctor is, that's the first degree. 5 years in medical school, a general practitioner. And the specialist is going back to do a master's in a field of choice, really. If you want to do pediatrics, you want to go back and specialize in now only pediatrics with a further period of training, 3 to 4 years. Yeah, that's the difference.
Interesting. So, what do you folks hope to do now? Because this is happening. You're saying government has not engaged you. Are you going to reach out to them? What's your plan as Uganda Medical Association?
As Uganda Medical Association, we'll definitely reach out to them. But I also want to encourage and tell the Ugandans out there that this plan is bound to fail, because they will not be able to
Are you planning to fail it?
No, but all facts on grounds. Unless we are going to really look, we're going to be ashamed as a country, because if you're going to import doctors and not be able to provide the conditions for them to do their work, then they will also soon feel they are not offering what they are meant to be offering. And just like the General Secretary says, they will also seek to join us in the endeavor to improve the health system in Uganda.
Are these going to be in just government health facilities, or how is it going to be done?
They are proposing that they will be that they will be in the government health facilities at hospital levels, and we know that the biggest understaffing is at health center level. Yes.
Interesting. Yesterday I spoke to Sarah Opendi, the Minister of State for Primary Healthcare. I thought that she would come. I spoke to a couple of people in the ministry. Of course, the technical people are steering clear of this. They're saying that the politicians come and defend this thing. It is their thing. I could not get the politicians to come here. Do you see politics in this? Do you see technical sense, health-wise, in this?
Well, there is no technical sense in this. It clearly doesn't add up. Even if you asked someone on the street, maybe a businessman, an accountant, anyone really in the country right now, they'll tell you it does not add up, it doesn't make sense. Most of these people have relatives flying out of the country to find better employment opportunities, and they know that, we all know that even when the politicians move out of the country to Nairobi, South Africa, wherever, they meet Ugandan doctors working in these facilities. So it doesn't add up really.
Of course, you guys called off the strike. You're still concerned. Salary increments have not happened. The other issues of concern, supplies and so on. Are doctors working, or is it a question of, all right, since you have insisted to get back to work, you've not availed what we asked, let's get to work and be busybodies, but pretty much not doing much?
Yep. The doctors are back to work already. They are working. What to use, of course, remains a challenge. However, the public now knows that we are not the ones hiding some of these equipments. So they sympathize with us. They are more understanding right now. And I believe that if we were to go back to industrial action right now, they would join us, because now they have seen and felt what we are talking about, that the health system needs to be bettered, and everyone needs to work towards this because it concerns our lives.
You've talked about industrial action.
Yeah.
Is that an idea you're mulling again?
Well, you have to understand that we never called off the industrial action. We simply suspended it to allow government time to fulfill its promises to us. Yeah.
How much time did you give them? How much time did you agree on?
Well, we have of course until July, until the new budget is read. For now, we try to engage them so that several things that we discussed are included within the budget.
Let's imagine what government is proposing to pay these specialists that it wants to bring in from Cuba. 5.5 million?
5.4, yeah.
5.4 million for each one of them. You said we have a total of 1,500 specialists, if I remember correctly, whether they be around or they've gone out of the country.
Yes.
If we decide, how much are they earning currently, those ones here in Uganda?
In Uganda, because the senior consultant right now earns about 3.2.
That's a senior consultant?
Yes, a senior consultant. Yeah, so going downwards, a medical officer special grade, who is a specialist, by the way, earns about 2.4. Yes.
So if we were to shoot it up now, that's by 3 million shillings. Is that money you think we can have available?
Yeah.
Because many times government will say, look, our resource envelope is small, the needs are, you know, through the roof. We've got to try and touch a bit of everything. Roads, education, etc., infrastructure and the like. Is this, in your view, money that can be available?
Well, it's money going to be available to pay the Cuban doctors. So simply say, open up the 200 positions in public service, say we will pay this much. That's the same as you're going to pay the Cubans, because these are also specialists. And scale up for the people already in practice. I promise you, people will apply for these jobs, and we might have to use Nambole for the interviews.
I'm trying to get my head around this issue, and again, like I said, it's unfortunate we don't have somebody from the ministry.
True.
But if government is saying there's a shortfall of 200, are those people that have left the country and they're working elsewhere, or is it that we have, you know, specialist doctors here in Uganda, but maybe in the view of the ministry they're not competent enough? What exactly is the issue?
Well, I clearly can't understand what the issue is.
Is there a gap that needs to be filled?
There is a gap that needs to be filled in public service, because there is an understaffing of about 51% in the public institutions, the hospitals. That's over about 1,700 doctors not filled in the public service positions. All
those are working in the private sector?
Most of them are working in the private sector, because the private sector is anyway better paying. So they want to definitely bridge the gap. I know over the years they've advertised for several of these jobs and people are not applying for these jobs for reasons we all know. Because of the working conditions, people have no accommodation, they have to go to hard-rich areas, people have nothing to use, there's no power, so there are several things people don't have. And everyone says, well, why would I go to earn 2 million as a specialist after about 9 years of studying? Okay? It does not add up. People have families, you know, you have 1, 2, 3 kids, 2 million will definitely not do the job for you. For however much we want to serve Ugandans, we also need better environment. If government is not willing to pay us better, there are several things they can do. Provide the accommodation, provide what to use. You can even say you're going to provide health insurance for the doctors, provide education insurance for their children, even if you said 1 or 2 or 3 children. Really make the life of the doctor better, so that they are in a position to serve the Ugandan.
When you engage your doctors, the ones that you lead and speak for, what do you hear from them? What are they saying about this and several other issues, the industry action that is suspended and so on? What are they saying?
Well, they are patient. Doctors are really calm people. However, for now, with the Cuban story, I have to tell you the specialists are not happy. They are not very happy. And there should be a press conference on Wednesday morning for them to air air out what they really feel and what should be the way forward on this issue.
You folks met the president, if I remember correctly?
Well, that was last year before the industrial action.
Before the industrial action.
Yeah.
And then when the industrial action happened, you eventually met the Prime Minister.
Yes.
What exact promises did he make?
Well, one of them was that we would hear back from the Public Service Commission that was to do salary harmonization by December 16th, 2017. That didn't happen, and we've never heard from them officially. 2, we were to have a 41 billion supplementary budget, which has never been passed. 3 was to have the senior house officers policy passed and an interns policy passed by the end of December, which hasn't happened. However, the meetings have been going on. Maybe the time period has not been fulfilled, but at least meetings are still going on, and soon it should be closed. We also have to have UMA represented on certain government organs and consulted on certain health matters, which also seems not to be implemented yet. So from the promises of the Prime Minister, we've not had much yet.
You know, sometimes I imagine that the reason why negotiations with government, between government and workers, whoever those might be, is that everything is shrouded in caginess. There's nothing clear. So when the Prime Minister meets you or the President and says we are going to fix that, this and the other, do you demand for practicality on this of, all right, so Your Excellency, you're a difficult one to get. Give us who we are going to engage with, who is going to work on this, that and the other. Do you do that? Because when the President promises, you know, I'm going to increase your salaries, I'm going to avail supplies, and then you clap and you call off the industrial action, I'm thinking it doesn't make sense to me, the ordinary person who is thinking, we have been here and we might get there again. You know, because there's no cogent plan that says, all right, so we've made this promise, who is going to follow through on it, what are the timelines, and we keep in a vicious cycle of sorts.
Well, we do of course demand for practicality. We need people to put who is in charge. And this particular meeting headed by the Prime Minister was attended by the Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary, the Ministry of Health Minister, that's State for General Duties, Honorable Saro Pendi, and the Minister of Public Service, Honorable Mukasa Mroli, attended. So several of these people attended. And when we went point by point, even the Minister of Finance and Planning, Honorable Bahati, attended the meeting, and we of course agreed on all these things with the different sectors around. So finance knew we needed a 41 billion supplementary for the reusables, equipment, everything, drugs and medicines in the hospital. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, was aware that the senior house officers and interns policy was supposed to be out by that timeline. So we usually do demand for practicality. However, I don't know what sometimes happens. I don't know if it's the politicians' way that things drag along and take some time, or it's just the way government works.
Interesting. So who is meant to be your contact person? Who do you liaise with to follow up on this?
Well, it still depends. When you want to talk about the money, the supplementary, you have to call up Honorable Bahati. If you want to have the SHO policy, interns policy, you have to call the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Health. And other things that concerns UMA being represented on several committees, that is the Minister of Health, Honorable General Thacheng.
So you've adumbrated those different people.
Yeah.
My question then is, have you been engaging them, or have you been waiting for them to tell you, all right, so this is how far we have gone, we have fulfilled this, we haven't this, you're probably waiting for them, and yet one would expect that you should be exerting some pressure and following up with them, because you see, many times people don't do what is expected, people do what is inspected. And inspection can mean follow-up, it can mean putting pressure and so on and so forth.
No, we do follow up with them. The President has written several letters to the ministry to follow up on several things. And the permanent secretary is also a doctor who is on our platforms, email platform, the WhatsApp platforms, and we interact on day-to-day basis, really. The people speak every day through these forums, and they do also pick up one or two things. But as the executive, we also do follow up. Sometimes we even ask for these meetings ourselves, and to try and follow up really and see where have we reached, how have we reached. We also recently, the ministry invited us for a meeting to assess the industrial action and how far and how much has been achieved. I think that was about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Okay.
We are watching to see how things go. You say you're going to have a press conference on Wednesday on this matter.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see, and hopefully things will move in the right direction. Dr. Fawaz Kavuma, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's edition of The Big Story. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joel Senyonyi. Good morning.